Hello and welcome to the Three Body Narrative. We are your hosts, Pradyum, Aaron, and Naeem. And guess what? We're 12 passers. Or, and more? No, okay, not really.
Not just 12 pass. I think we probably need to restart the podcast with that intro. Because
Well,
12
I
passes
think,
for someone who's just passed out from 12th. We've done our bachelor's, so,
and masters for some.
and
So,
master's for some, yeah.
yes. All right, so welcome to the Three Body Narrative. We are your hosts, Pradyum, Aaron, and Naeem. And here, we are here to talk about 12 Fail. Hashtag restart. This is a film, a biographical film by Vidhu Vinod Chopra. It's a recent Hindi entry into the Bollywood sphere of movies, and the movie is all about Manoj Kumar Sharma, who essentially overcame extreme poverty to become an Indian police service officer, and it's about his journey from a remote village to attaining this sort of prestigious status and everything in between. Uh, it's probably going to be a little more serious than our previous entries, I suppose. But let's talk about this movie. Before we get to discussing in depth about 12th Fail, let's start with our rankings and ratings for the film. Who wants to go first?
Why don't you lead this time?
Okay, fine. All right. I thought as much. Yes. I actually thought, given the sort of movies that have been releasing in the realm of Bollywood, this was a pleasant surprise. This was a refreshing tale. We've seen this tale often, obviously in the fictional side, where this it's basically from rags to riches or from nobody to somebody. But given that it was biographical, it was fun to watch. It was also, I think, very well acted, very well directed, very well paced as well. There wasn't too much cringe, which has become the norm for Bollywood. And I mean, I don't think there were too many songs as well, which were quite unnecessary in nature. So overall, kind of liked it, pleasantly surprised by it. I think when I watched it first, there was a lot of hype around it, so I wanted to see whether it actually would live up to that hype. And for me, yeah, it kind of did. I think deserved whatever plaudits and awards I guess it won. The acting, again, like I said, was really really good. The tone, and I think the uh, so especially with these kind of movies, right? Like when it's tackling sort of education and this whole thing of competition and all of that, it could become very very dark, very serious, and sort of morose in a way, which could put off audiences, right? Like you're talking about, we've seen it in other movies, previous Bollywood movies also, especially with when they're talking about like college life and the darkness of it that comes, you know, in terms of life. Here, I like the lighter tone. It's still a very serious movie, but I did like that they didn't go on and go on about, or they didn't show this really dark side. It was still a nice, fun movie to watch. Highly recommended. For me, it was a four out of five stars, which is, if anyone knows me or knows how I rank or watch Hindi movies, that's pretty high ranking from my side. So I really liked it, and I think also the runtime wasn't that bad, so which is quite nice. But what did you guys name? What did you think of the movie?
Um, so yeah, I think I echo kind of what you basically said. Definitely a 4 out of 5 for me, this movie. Um, Going into the movie, I think it's in for certain kind of serious movies, or at least knowing that it's more of a serious movie, you need to be in the right mind frame to kind of go
Hmm.
into it, especially. And I wasn't looking like considering where I was after a work week and like generally
Right.
like trying to relax. I was not looking forward to watching this movie, even
Okay.
though it was on my watch list because I've had heard really good things about it, and it's been on my watch list for about 2 years now. I think this came back in out in 2023, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's been
Um,
a couple of
uh,
years.
yeah, and I remember like hearing really good things back then itself about this movie. But I've always been like putting it off for a really long time, and I think it's been on Netflix for at least a year, if not more.
Hmm.
Uh, so yeah, I think the runtime from the outset, 2 hour 27 minutes, like it was a daunting. I think just thinking of Bollywood movies at that point has become very difficult for me to kind of fathom, even though like most Bollywood movies are around that. But
Most Hollywood
like
movies are also like that.
yeah, but like you mentioned, most the recent Bollywood movies have not been
Up to par.
entertaining,
Yeah,
to say
entertaining.
the
Yeah.
least. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's hard to find any meaning in them. Forget about meaning; it's hard to find them entertaining to begin with.
It's hard to find even
So
a plot in them.
yeah, more often than not. Like I think these days, a lot of the Hindi movies you just go for the action and for who the star is, basically,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
that's it. But yeah, this movie deals with uh, some serious. I won't say okay, probably is issues in the systems that we have in place back home. Um, how difficult certain challenges are for people who come from poverty, and like kind of even having to dream. It's not about just actually living through it and achieving that. Even
Hmm.
dreaming at some point about achieving something like that is such a daunting task, considering what they're taught to begin with, and like the idea in like the kind of ideology that's kind of set right at the beginning is, even if you pass your 12th grade, the best you can expect is a job at what, like a chaprasi job or something, is what I recall the
Sure.
person saying. Yeah. So casting is brilliant. Vikrant is fantastic as the lead.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, there's no doubt about his acting chops for sure. Um, but even the side characters, whether that be the person who teaches the restart concept to him,
Yeah.
or the friend who just out of the whim takes him to Delhi after he's been robbed blind. His girlfriend, his friend, who then becomes his girlfriend, sticks through with him through some really
Yeah.
difficult times, etc., etc. Everyone like plays their part really well.
Yeah. That's the
Uh,
least relatable thing in the world in the movie. No.
Okay, yeah. I mean, it depends on which way you're looking at. The friend puts the more other side of things into view. We'll talk about that in detail a
Yeah.
little later.
Sure.
But yeah, a solid watch. I think having watched it last night and just like to the point where it wasn't just me watching. My mom just wanted to see what the movie was about. 5 minutes in, she was so hooked that she was like, okay, like pause. I'm just gonna like do something, come back. And then
Yeah. Yeah.
eventually she sat through the entire movie and we ended past midnight, which is usually like an hour and a half beyond her bedtime. So she really liked the movie too. And to the point where at the end we were like, is he gonna become the IPS? Is he not gonna become the IPS? Like what
Yeah.
is the this thing? And and
Yeah.
and the thing is,
But spoiler alert for anyone who's obviously I mentioned it at the start that he does become. So I
yeah,
guess
yeah.
there we go.
I think the one thing that I liked about the movie is, uh, like through the movie, right at the
Yeah.
beginning, uh, like the concept is 12th fail. So in my head, he's like, I'm like, okay, he's a 12th fail. He doesn't pass at any point, but he
Oh.
does. At his third attempt, he kind of
Yeah.
gets past it, and I'm like, okay, so how's he a 12th fail? And it comes back circle in that interview where that becomes like a problematic situation for him.
Hmm.
Um, but it's those very little things in terms of coming full circle of the character remembering why he set out on that journey to begin with, and not losing himself in the cruel system that's built around uh,
Yeah.
uh, the current nature of
Education.
things back
Yeah.
home, or yeah, whatever. So yeah, that's what I think about the movie. as
Okay.
an outline, I suppose.
Great. So we agree on each other with each other, not on each other, but we agree with each other. I don't know how that would work.
Wrong
Uh,
podcast.
Restart.
Hey, there we go. So we agree with each other. There's obviously one other person on this podcast who I'm sure normally has quite a different view when it comes to Hindi movies and watching Hindi movies. I wanted to get his thoughts on this as well.
Well, for starters, I think Prady, you redeemed yourself with this recommendation.
Yes.
I still have
Finally.
nightmares with the previous one that you recommended. So, yeah, I mean, good job on that one. I think, for the most part, I think I agree with the rating that you gave, and I kind of even leaning towards being a little bit more generous than you guys for this movie. I would say 4, and I
Wow.
could argue between
High.
4 and 4.5. So
That's
yeah.
high praise. That's high praise coming from you for a Bollywood movie. It's almost like, Michelin star guides giving 3 stars to restaurants. It's like that's how good. Vidhu Vinod Chopra, if you're listening to this podcast episode, like you should
Yep.
be extremely
You've done
eternally
yourself
grateful.
proud.
Yeah,
You've done
at least
yourself
grateful.
proud.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, but I mean, you had recommended this movie now like a couple of weeks ago since recording this, and I kind of did put it off for a while, and eventually when I did watch it, I was like, it was a really good one and worth the watch. I mean, initially looking at 2.5 hours when you did recommend the movie, I was like, not so bad. I mean, we've sat through worse and longer ones too. So I wasn't so daunted about it, but when I
Well,
did eventually, yeah,
funnily enough, the other movie was shorter than this, but felt longer.
yeah, for sure. But yeah, I mean, while watching this 2.5 hours or about 2.5 hours, I think it went quite quickly because the movie was that enjoyable and it had so many bits and pieces to it that kind of made the movie entertaining. Maybe not your laughing out loud kind of things, but it kept you entertained in its own way, and I mean, in a nice way, if just to be clear. So yeah, it was a good watch. I thought the acting, like you said, was on point. Everyone captured the characters that they played quite well. I think even the different situations, whether it was emotional, intense, and that kind of thing, I think as a group of actors, they kind of all did a good job to kind of get the viewers involved and feel what that situation might have been like to a person that was kind of enduring those situations. So yeah, I think that was a really good watch.
Awesome. Great. So now that we've had or you've heard our ratings for the film, let's start to dissect, parts of it. So we'll obviously start with where the film starts itself, which is the village, right? So I think it starts with the father having to travel somewhere to dispute something because he threw a sandal at the corrupted officer, municipal officer.
Yeah. I think the story starts
He gets
with
the
the
gun out,
father
right?
getting a suspension notice
Yeah.
because of his behavior the day prior at the workplace that he has. He's supposed to sign off on certain documents which he does not agree to because the tasks that were sort of entailed on those documents were never completed. They were those the consignment never reached the people who, like the farmers, whoever was supposed to receive it, never received it. Basically, the mayor kind of does away with whatever the products are or whatever for his benefit, and the people who are supposed to benefit from it don't benefit. So this person does not want to be a part of that by signing off on that document, and as such, he kind of says that I'm not going to do that. At which point, his superior says, if you like, that's just how things work, etc., etc. You get in line, or you're going to regret it.
And then
To
he
which
throws
he,
his.
yeah, to which he
He
takes
essentially
out his
throws.
slipper and uh, kind of throws it at his face, uh, and then takes out
So
the other one and flips it at him as well, which is quite funny. Uh, yeah,
yeah, so
I
he
think
he he decides to then kind of go and file a sort of lawsuit to the higher court or the city court. That's where he leaves, which kind of leaves Manoj in a very precarious situation because essentially then he becomes the breadwinner for the family. You have an elderly grandmom, you have a young sister, and a mother who basically is trying to do her best, but essentially you become the man of the house and need to do.
I mean,
And
he does have his elder brother, but
yeah,
the
oh
elder
yeah,
brother's not had so much luck at
He
that
he
point.
also was on daily wages, and so yeah, they were just about getting by.
that was his
Yeah,
brother. I always thought that was his friend for some reason. I don't know
there
why.
is a friend as well.
No, there
So
is
Okay.
a elder
the
brother, but
grocery
he's
guy.
not in town. He's in a separate village.
Oh,
No, so the
oh, right,
elder
right.
brother initially is in town. They're both
Yeah,
the
they were
ones
the ones who
who
were doing the jugaad, the rickshaw
jugaad
thing.
thing, the rickshaw
Oh,
thing.
Yeah.
that was the brother. I
Yeah,
thought that was
that
okay.
was the
Yeah.
Fine.
brother.
So okay,
Then the
right,
brother, after the whole debacle that follows, kind of leaves town to go into another village and make his daily wages there,
right.
Yeah.
which is slightly better opportunity than what he was getting within the village that they were in.
Now
Whereas
we,
Vikrant,
yeah.
I mean,
No, no,
sorry,
go ahead.
Manoj kind of
Yeah.
moves out to pursue his further education or whatever. But before we get to that point, let's
We come to a very precarious, not precarious, but very interesting point, right? Where he's
so
preparing for
we
his
meet
12th,
Manoj preparing for his board exams.
which we've all
And
gone through,
yeah,
obviously.
absolutely. And I love the way they introduce uh, the character that is Manoj
Yeah.
in terms of what his ideology is, what he wants to do for the nation or the
Hmm.
country, and basically uh, the good he wants to do for the world in general, I suppose. Uh, but the means he's trying to adopt to get to the byproduct of all of that, basically, and that is to pass his board examinations through the mode of cheating. So I love the fact
That's
that that's the
hilarious.
opening sequence, that he's making chits for his board examinations, Walsey. And I was like, with the sheer number of chits that were there, I was like, when? How is he gonna get this, like, all of this in? Uh, and then the next scene happens, and then you realize what's happening.
Yeah, which is fun because I mean, it does probably happen where in these sort of villages and this thing, the idea is just to kind of help children move on to the next stage. It doesn't matter how they do it. And uh, while yes, the means is not right, it's possible. Have we ever encountered anything where a teacher's been okay with us cheating?
Not that I recall. No.
Not
No.
really. No.
I've had exams where the invigilators just walked out of class, so it kind of is like he just walked out, strolling around, kind of
I
so
don't.
we've
It's like
had opportunities.
do what you have to do, but I don't want to know about it.
Yeah, exactly. So
I think
it's
grade ninth. But the similar situation.
without giving
No, no,
names.
no. Without giving names again, but I don't think it was like meant to be that way. So, in the sense
Mhm.
that there were a few students who fell sick and got chickenpox, so they were
Okay,
all kind of clubbed in and put into this one room. And I'm
okay.
not quite sure if the teacher was feeling uncomfortable with being around so many
Around
people who
chicken.
had had chickenpox. Uh, so she would kind of, she or he would kind of step out for like about 5 minutes
He
or
or
so.
he, you were not sure what they were.
She or he, like, as in,
No,
like, they
no.
kept changing, right, every day. So
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, but what? It's fine. Be ambivalent. That's fine. That's good. Don't do.
no, but nonetheless, like, it wasn't for more than 5 minutes. But I think no one had the balls to kind of even think about. Uh, I did have people kind of say, "Hey, do you know the answer to this?" And I'm like, "Sorry, man, I'm too sick to kind of really study. I'm just bluffing my way through it, which was a lie at the time because I was like too scared to actually be talking to anyone because I was like, oh, like you never know, kind of, because the doors have those squares,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
look through glasses, so you
No,
never know when they kind of are peeking through, kind of a thing. So
but it's not even that. One of our best friends, I was in the same class as him, and when he was when the invigilator was talking to another teacher, he was asked by someone if you could share, and he did. And another teacher walked past, but because the doors open, he walked past and he saw him, and he got him right. So I was like, yeah, you really didn't have the cojones to do that. Some people did. Some people did get away with it. I think the biggest sort of example of what they showed in the movie versus what we had was our Arabic exam, which is essentially our teacher would give us the exam a week before the exam, which means that he would do it as not a workshop, but what was a worksheet, like a homework sheet.
really,
Yeah, and he'd give it out, right? And we'd all like fill it. And then when the exam came, you'd get the exact same sheet, right? And
wow, interesting.
which is hilarious because I got awards for Arabic, and I'm like, how did no one else get 100? Like, how stupid were people that they didn't get the same thing? Yeah, okay, maybe one or two lines were different from what was there in the worksheet or the homework because obviously you can't make it that obvious, but it was 95% the exact same thing. So okay, so I mean that
So
was
yeah, I
hilarious.
mean, adding to the point where, there was a kid who was daring enough to get a book into that room, thinking he could get
Yeah.
away with it, and the professor or the teacher who was invigilating saw him kind of reaching out into. So what was the thing was, like, we were in a science lab or something, and it had
Uh-huh.
one of those cupboards, and this guy had the audacity to
Uh-huh.
kind of keep the book in there. And so at one point, I don't know if she heard the cupboard, or because we are all like, so in our exam paper, right, we are also worried
Yeah.
about our own papers, we're not looking around. So I think she heard the door, and she just happened to kind of look, and she saw
Yeah.
the paper, she saw the book, and the next thing she did was take his sheet out, crumple it, throw it, took the book, gave him a blank sheet, and said, "Start again. I see you one more time, and you're done." And I think that kind of sets the tone about, okay, like, they're
Yeah.
not
Yeah. Yeah.
messing around, and you don't want to kind of take any risks with
But
this.
so when we see Manoj in the classroom, this is not obviously his first attempt doing 12.
Okay, wait, hold on. So it's one thing. Again, so we were based out of the UAE.
Yeah.
So I don't know how things are in India in terms of, and we come from like the Central Board of Secondary Education, the CBSE. So there's a certain way
Damn,
of
he knows
kind
the
of,
full form of it. Wow.
there is a certain rule that is followed where you're not allowed to attend your board examinations in the same school that you're from. You kind of move out to another school, right? That's the
Yeah. Yeah.
usual
Yeah. Yeah.
norm
Yeah. Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
followed in CBSE. I don't know if it's the same thing that they kind of do back
I
home in
don't think
India
they
as
had
well.
any other school in terms of in the village, but in general school, I don't know. I have no clue either. Yeah.
Right. But I think cross invigilators is one of the ways they kind of try and make sure that's not happening. And secondly,
Mm.
like, moving the schools around, generally, like, having kids kind of be split into two different schools or something like that. There are different kind of mechanisms or strategies that kind of put into place to avoid this kind of a situation. Uh, but I've heard of uh, I've heard of, like, uh, the schools having agreements between themselves,
Oh wow.
apparently, where it's like, you let mine and I let yours be okay, kind of a thing. And I've not seen this personally, but I've heard of these things. So I don't know.
Well,
Like,
our school definitely didn't have any of that agreement because we didn't get any okayed with.
yeah, yeah,
We
yeah.
weren't okayed by any invigilator. But Okay, but talking about the movie now, this wasn't the first time that he was doing his 12th, right? Because if I recall, the teacher says that you guys are so useless that even when we let you cheat,
No,
you can't do
that
it.
was
No,
his first.
he was referring to the previous batch.
Okay, so this was his first.
Yeah, so
His
the first time we see him, that is his first attempt, and he fails. And
Okay.
then I think it took him like a couple attempts, if I'm not
2 more
mistaken.
attempts, I think. Third
Yeah.
attempt he clears.
In his
The
third
second one he
attempt, he
fails.
passes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think the
Okay.
first attempt he kind of goes into it thinking that there's
Knowing
not
that,
much cheating.
yeah, I think
So
it
he
was
doesn't
under the
prepare.
presumption that you would be cheating through the entire
Yeah.
exam.
Yeah.
And so probably didn't study anything. So
At all. Yeah.
Yeah.
The
So
second
that's
one is
fine.
him trying to get into grips of how you kind of actually pass an exam without cheating. And then eventually you kind of he gets to where he needs to in terms of passing. Because that's the thing, right? Like they say he passed with first division marks in grade 10,
Yeah.
which then leads you to believe that the cheatings happened then already.
Yeah.
That's why he gets the first grade. And
He
like,
says that also. I
yeah,
think because
does he?
yeah,
that's
he
in the
says that
interview.
in the
Yeah.
interview.
Interview he does
Okay.
say it. Yeah.
And then the 12th grade where he's prepared for
Third
by
division.
himself, he just gets a third division, just about passing. But he's so proud of that achievement, which is what was confusing to me at the time. I was like, why is the movie called 12th fail when, like, yes, it's his third attempt, but he's passed
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. So did you
So
think that the whole movie was just about him passing 12th grade? Like at the end of the movie, he would pass 12th?
no, I thought he never clears 12th. Like I thought he's a 12th fail who kind of goes on to like do things in life. That does not necessarily mean like you've achieved the bare
So it's
minimum.
essentially education is
Academic.
folly because you really didn't need it.
I won't say education is folly. I don't think that's the
No,
concept
I
of the
mean the
movie anyway.
grades,
But
the grades
yeah,
or the
yeah, I think there have been enough
exams.
instances in people like in stories where you see people who've not had the bare minimum education actually go on to kind of still become some.
I mean, most of the millionaires are college dropouts, like in the US, right? So I completely understand it, but that's where we meet our probably the one of the most important characters in this movie, which is the DSP.
Yeah.
I think a very vital character to shaping up Manoj's life henceforth.
Funny
Right?
thing. So seeing him in such a serious role, the last time I saw him, I don't know how many, probably 2
This is the
decades ago,
DSP.
was the DSP was in a romantic role where he falls in love falls in love with a girl whose fiance he kills by mistake or something. It's called Tumbin, like really long
Okay.
time ago.
Right.
And I was like, wow, like what? I never thought he was still in the film industry. So to kind of see, I don't remember his name. I think it's Dushyant or something like that.
Yeah, Dushyant Singh.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah. So to see him again, I was like, wow, okay, nice new role to look at. But like
Interesting.
his 10 minutes or something within the film that he's got, he plays that role really well.
Okay.
I mean, not in Tumbin. In Tumbin is obviously the star main.
Yeah.
The scene. I'm talking about this movie. I really liked that kind of stint he has, and how in that short span of time he actually leaves a lasting mark on the main character. And I think even like as a viewer, I kind of understand why he kind of leaves that um, lasting
Impression.
impression on Manoj, I suppose.
Yeah.
So yeah, the one thing that I didn't initially see was like how the whole concept is of like the father's teaching the girl, and he's studying on top of the roof, and suddenly
Yeah.
out of nowhere when the suspension notice is being served, the grandma is like grab the gun and they're like looking to
Yeah.
shoot, and I did not see that coming. I was like, whoa, okay, this family is into some like crazy shit.
Yeah.
So yeah, like I mean, nice mix of even like that situation becomes really serious in terms of like
Yeah.
them all almost shooting the guy.
Yeah.
But like I like the way they kind of balance it out with the, I don't know how they do it, but they do kind of make it seem funny in the way the grandma grabs onto the guy. So I don't know.
Yeah.
It's
It's
kind of funny
also,
to
I
look.
think it's nice, like they show subtle ways of how corrupt and how issues are in places, because yeah, we see it from the beginning, then we see it when Dushyant helps Manoj, he gets moved on later on as obvious because the mayor comes to know about it.
Yeah,
Then you have the rickshaw business that you guys were talking about, that adds another issue. Then we have the issue when you're in a bus and then someone randomly just takes your stuff and goes away, and
that
that's
also,
the
right? Like that's such a weird thing. Like
weird in what way.
I uh, because honestly, like if I was in his place, I felt like I would fall to the same trap in a certain way. Like you just feel like, okay, so he meets this lady who's
Yeah.
carrying a child with her in a bus, and she seems at first like not too this thing. She seems a little, maybe like like a little scared or something like that. So he tries to kind of ease her and like make conversation with her and stuff like that. And it seems like, okay, cool, like like they go into the same place and stuff like that. Next thing you know, he falls asleep, puts his guard down, and his bag is gone. And who took the bag? It's the lady with the kid.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
Would you guys go, like, so he comes out, he's told that this woman went off from the previous stop and took away. Would you guys go back and try and chase her? He seems to just give up at that point. No, both of you shaking your head like, nah, I'm just like,
nah,
fuck it.
But
like
the conductor did tell him that she got off half an hour ago, so there was no way that you backtrack your way and then try to find her in a place that you have no idea about. So
no, but
I mean,
also to the point where to backtrack, he needs money to get back into a bus and travel to that place, right? Even if it's
But
like
I
half
mean,
no,
an
but
hour away,
even if
whatever.
you could, the how would you find a random woman that you've never met before? And
Yeah,
again, would you want to risk going up to the wrong woman and then saying, "Where's my bag?" I mean, that's just a whole
any,
load of
any,
trouble you could get into without
yeah,
any wrongdoing per se. So yeah, I
any
don't think I would.
walk up to the first woman with the kid and be like, where the hell's my suitcase, woman?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The only thing I would be like, how did she get out of that row with you sitting there?
sleeping. Yeah,
No, but she would have to like walk across you, over you, something. So yeah, it must have been a pretty good sleep, I guess.
Yeah.
I think she stood on the seat, put the child first on the seat ahead of
In
her.
her head,
Maybe that had emptied out,
jumped like that.
and she jumped there and slowly slid the bag out. And I mean, like for someone who's daring enough to take someone else's bag and kind of walk out like that, probably is scheming. Again, like so the thing was like at that point I was thinking, is it actually the lady who's done it, or is it just the
The
conductor himself who's
conductor.
kind of
Oh,
taken this thing and hidden it away or something? So I kept waiting to
interesting.
see if it's this guy lying about this thing, but obviously they don't spend too much time on that. The
Yeah.
point of the movie is not that he's been duped.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter who's duped him.
Who stole my suitcase?
Yeah,
That's what
yeah.
the
Poor
whole
guy.
movie is about.
Uh,
Uh, but that's where we meet our second vital character of the movie, and that's his friend Preetham Pandey, who,
yeah.
I
This
mean,
we meet at Gwalior, right? We are in
Yep,
yeah,
Gwalior in
at
his
that
he's
train
he's.
station.
restaurant.
But before
Yeah,
that,
The
he's
no,
told.
the train station restaurant.
in the train station
But
restaurant. Right.
before that, he is told that the exam that he had gone to Gwalior for has been cancelled because of the government. Right, the government did not want, because that's what.
But is
Remember,
it the
he
exam or the class,
coaching center,
the
I think.
coaching center, the
Yeah,
coaching
yeah,
classes?
yeah.
Yeah,
The PSC, right? That's what it is. The police
yeah.
PSC coaching class has been cancelled, and but he says that the government only has just stop taking it. No, because they're not taking in any more new candidates or something, I think is why they've stopped that coaching. Right. So, but we meet Preetham, who is probably the most generous person out there because he decides to not only pay for some random dude's meal, which I guess we would all do. I mean, come on, the guy's probably starving.
I think that's
Paying
quite
was not
believable.
quite believable.
For
it's the fact that he lets him tag along to kind of come with me to Delhi and then stay with him as well. Like, this is a stranger you meet. I mean, you have to be really, really kind-hearted and like very trusting of people to be able to kind of do something like that. Like,
I mean, which the movie kind of leads you to believe, right? I mean, throughout the movie, except for his drunk phase or while he's drunk, his antics there, I think throughout the movie he seems to be one of those kind of kind-hearted friends who is all about having
there is
fun
no
and
doubt
doing
about that, for sure. Like, I think the guy, I'm not sure if he's depicted from someone who's actually a real person as well, but like because I know it's a non-fiction story, but I don't know if this specific character actually did exist or it's just put in there for like to add value or something like that. But like, I also like the fact that they've painted the character in a certain way, as opposed to him being this kind friend and like the one who helps him throughout everything, and they have like this rosy relationship throughout from the beginning till the end, because that's not how life is. You have your differences and things don't always go in a certain way, and you might have a falling out at some point, but you also kind of come around eventually, and I think that's very important. But he is extremely critical to the story from the perspective of what he offers to Manoj at that point, because he's so broken, and I think at that point his trust in humanity is at the lowest. At that point, because he feels like he's been, first of all, his family's gone through shit, and the one
then
chance, like his grandma gave him a way out, having all those savings, handing it over to him and saying, go make a career for yourself and become a DSP or whatever. And to lose that on the first day of making that journey is quite heartbreaking, and kind of like, at that point you feel like, my God, like, and he did nothing wrong at that point. Like, he's just started out, he wanted to do good in the world, and the first thing that humanity does to him is like, here's a reality check. So
that's quite relatable. Not relatable, but that is quite apt. I mean, that does happen in real life. Also, I'm no Manoj, but if someone was offering me a free train ride to Delhi and stay, I would definitely not take it. I'll be like, I'd rather go back to my grand.
Yeah, but like, I mean, see, Manoj is a
but that's just me.
Like,
I think that city should just be burned to the ground.
I think also matters where you're coming from. Manoj is at a point of desperation. He has nothing but
I'm saying
poverty.
if he comes in, if someone approaches me to with a free train ticket and this thing, I'll be like politely saying, "F off." No, not if I was in Manoj's shoe. If I was in my own shoe.
No, of course. Like, but I don't think at any point it's the friend who's making the first advance. So it's the guy begging him to take.
He does say,
so it's not like, it's not fishy, because it's not that guy saying, "Chal mere saath, main leke chalta hu tere ko." Then it becomes very weird to begin with. It's this guy pleading and that guy giving into his humanity and be like, you know what? Okay, cool. Let me take this guy and kind of.
Let me restart it and modify it again by saying that if I was Preetham, I would be like, you're better off not coming to Delhi. Please don't ever visit the city.
Yeah, okay. So I'm a slightly different person, perhaps. And if I had the money, I'd probably give him the money and say, go get yourself a ticket. But that's where our
I'm just spare him from Delhi. That's it. That's my only thing.
Yeah. No,
I think where Praddy and him kind of is different is because I think once he said, okay, I'll take you to Delhi, he always had the intention of then helping him with accommodation, which is why I think he was okay to go with. I think Praddy is looking at it from the aspect that he knows what
Delhi does too.
Manoj would
Delhi
be
does,
getting
yeah.
into, and is like, yeah, you're better off
With your
staying,
grandma.
staying clear of Delhi. But
Or
I
I'll
think,
take you to another city which does I'm pretty sure it's a nationwide thing, right? Because she's coming from Mussoorie to do it and all of this. I'll be like, I'll give you a train ticket to any other city, man. Just not Delhi. Just don't ever go to the city.
yeah, but I mean, but in his case, it would be that he'd be living on the streets regardless of where he
I'll
went
come
to.
with you, man. I'm not going to Delhi. But yeah, no,
Let's be
okay.
honest, you're not going
Yeah,
anywhere.
I'm not going anywhere.
a
Yeah,
stranger.
that's true. Yeah, no, that definitely. I did that one time. No. Yeah, it's
That's for
well, that
another
happened.
podcast, guys.
Yeah,
That's after us.
Yeah. Okay, but we do so he takes him to Delhi, this really populated, buzzing city, which overwhelms Manoj in the first place because from a
Yeah.
very quiet village, he's brought to this megalomaniac of a city, and that's where he's okay. So now he's obviously determined to do his uh, IPS exam, right? And we come to know that you only have 4 tries, which is insane, right? I think 3 tries and then the fourth is you're done, or 3 tries. I'm either
No.
confused if it's
Fourth one is the final one. Yeah, you do
Yeah,
4 times.
fourth one's
Unless
yeah.
you belong to specific caste types or something like
Yeah.
that, and then you have like
Which Mr. Restart, I think, had like 6, I think.
six attempts. Yeah. So you
And-
have to be part of certain backward caste is what he says or something
Yeah.
like that. I don't know.
Yeah,
Something
you
like that.
have reservations in the country, right? So you have all
Yeah.
of those exceptions. But it's a brilliant, I think this segment is brilliant in showcasing what Indian education is all about. Because not only does it show the competitiveness because of it being such a populated city, it shows the ruthlessness, it shows the sort of, the mentality that one needs to have. And it also shows, because from Preetham's side, it shows how parental pressure and what that does to you, because he actually doesn't want to do any of this, right? He wants to do something else. He
Yeah.
wants to write poetry and all of that. But it continues to show all of that. And of course, my favorite bit of the movie.
Does he want to write poetry, or does he just want
no,
to be on TV?
he wants to be on TV. Sorry.
He wanted to be on TV, but he did have the poetry thing because there was that one scene where he was reciting
The
poetry.
Shairi.
Yes, but I think it is TV, right? Because that's when he starts vlogging at the end, and he
No,
wants to
but
become this thing.
in one of the things when he was drunk, he did mention that I want to be on TV.
Yeah. No, but also one of my favorite things is showing how coaching classes are in India and how much of how careful you need to be when you select your classes. Remember when that's when he meets
the pictures
Shraddha.
of Deep on and stuff like that. Yeah, that was very interesting to see how they kind of have like some of the top pass outs having been paid to have their pictures as advertising.
Which I want to ask you. So obviously we talk about the good of the nation and everything. Deep, who we come to see later on, right? Because of what he does and what he brings to Manoj's life later on, he's a very good person. But he's on that wall because he did take the money from the coach.
But I don't think he is a very good or he's portrayed to be a very good person to begin with, because they do say that he just has pity on him initially and kind of it's not like he sees him on his level and that's why he stops calling him Chotu. He just feels like, like I need to, like, this guy is like giving exams and stuff like that and he's not probably well off and stuff like that, which is why he's doing this work. So let me have some like pity on him and kind of, because he still treats him slightly differently as opposed to like he takes away the glass from him and stuff like that. Like, whereas if you respect him enough, you let him do his job like he normally does without like, everyone does a job for an earn. Okay, so it's not if he's serving tea, there's nothing wrong with it, kind of a thing. but that's where his ideology is, right? Like immediately he's like telling his friend, why don't you take it from this thing?
Yeah.
Alternatively, he could have taken the this thing and kind of served it and stuff like that. So they're not portraying him to be like a good person per se. He is this guy who's sitting on the wall already, which becomes more apparent as you kind of go into the film.
I didn't think of it as so deep as Naeem. I think he just wanted to, they just kind of needed it to be like him having a conversation with him and like, if you need anything, blah, 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 to kind of drill down this thing where he could then say that he took pity on me rather than kind of saw me as an equal or whatever.
Okay.
But yeah, like Naeem said, I don't think they ever intended it showing him as a good-hearted or kind-hearted thing. I think it was more, he is, yes, intellectually he was like a brilliant student or whatever, but I mean, he did what had to be done, which was like do his job and then get money on the side from A to Z or whatever that was. Or to Z.
R to Z.
R to Z.
Yeah. Like I was like, okay, cool. Initially, I was like, wait, are they just like posting pictures of people without like them knowing it?
Yeah.
Then I was like, okay, cool. So they're paying that person on when they pass out to kind of get the rights to kind of put it up there, which is like, wow, okay, cool.
But this movie was probably released at a good time because there are a lot of issues when it comes to coaching. We've seen these sort of ed tech companies going through a lot of issues. And the second thing is also we look, and this is something that I mentioned earlier, which is we know how rigorous, we know how competitive, ruthless this education system is. We weren't exposed to it, right? Our system was fairly lenient, or
we were exposed to it, but not at the level that you are in India, for that matter. The kind of daunting reality check you get in India is on a whole other level, because
but it's also the pressure that you get. Like we never had, I mean, yes, parental pressure is there to everyone to a certain degree, but we never, because it was never a population of 1 billion people and the chances were never that limited. You knew that in the country you would get something, it just feels like you're not facing the challenge of having to beat 1 crore, 2 crore.
I don't think that has to do with anything to do with the location we are in. Like it's not like because we studied in the UAE. No, it's not. I think it's because of the families we come from. More often, we are the upper middle class or the middle, like from the middle class sector, so we don't feel the challenge of not finding anything at all. I think there are opportunities to be found at some point.
But I get we live
I don't
that
know, man.
privileged life.
See, I have cousins back home in India, right?
Yeah.
And I speak to them on a regular basis, so I know the kind of challenges they're facing in terms of education, and they're being put into this thing. But I don't think they feel the kind of pressure that people who are from slightly like what's the right word to use?
No, but also it is that, no, I get it. So it is, I see like parental pressure. Like my parents wanted me to do well, but they never put that sort of, you have to be top class or you're nothing, right? Like that kind of pressure, I get it. That is more a parental thing than like a company. But when I am going to apply for a job in Dubai versus India, I am competing against only a certain versus one. I know the population size, the number of people who've gone to IIMs, ISB, MBAs, CAs, all of that, right? So I am competing again, and these guys have a very, because of the population, because you can't employ so many people, the percentage is also very low. So you hear CAs only having like a 5% or a 3%, whereas in a CFA you have 30-40% because it's like more global. So you have a it's bigger. It is different. Yeah. So I think location does need to play, and also talking about privilege, like you've seen movies like Three Idiots, or when people from good families go to IIMs and all that. But yes, so there the parental pressure is more, and that's where families come from, because there if they don't do well, they commit
it's not it's I mean it's not necessarily also parental pressure, right? It could be self-imposed also, knowing the fact that parents have probably invested a lot of their savings. I mean, they may not say anything about it, but knowing how much has gone into whatever that it is you have studied, and then the outcomes of it may not meet your expectations, so that self-imposed pressure is there. So the competition is a lot, and again, it then also depends on the ambitions of the individuals themselves, the families, and what's happening around. So the sources of pressure may be different, but I
Yeah.
would feel that, yeah, if you were in India, you would have been exposed to a lot more pressure than what we would have out here. Because again, I think, like you said, the sheer number of people competing for the spot that you have is a lot more. And for example, if you just take it, a guy who has done an MBA or a BBA over here, as opposed to the thousands and thousands of them that have done it in India, is
You
a
don't
lot
you
more.
they don't
So,
get jobs unless you're cream of the cream. You don't. It's very difficult to get a well-paying job.
exactly.
So
I remember back when we were like talking about MBAs and stuff. Even back then, still to some extent, you could say someone that had an MBA was like, okay, someone who has studied quite well and stuff like that. But now you have every second person, regardless of which institution they've done an
yeah,
MBA
yeah, yeah,
from,
yeah.
there are thousands of them in the market looking for jobs, having MBAs and stuff like that way. And you'll see even people with MBAs that may not necessarily be doing the jobs that they would have hoped to be doing once they have done the MBA. So
Yeah.
yeah, so it isn't easy. So I would kind of agree with you, Pradi, that competition just by sheer numbers being in India, and then also not having the resources to kind of help with the education and kind of prepping would be difficult.
Yeah, which saddens and angers me at the same time, because you have this exam which which is quite publicly known that if you don't get into this in the fourth time, then you're done with. Like MBAs, you can even try at the age of 50. You If you good enough, you can probably get into. But these sort of exams, which mean a lot to people, especially from lower backgrounds, it's sad. I get angered by it, but then at the same time, yeah, because we also live from with a more privileged lifestyle and a more privileged background. So watching it was a very good depiction of that. But at the same time, I was scared that they would go to the same trope of, when the chaiwala, right, when the friend Gauri Bai failed his fourth attempt. I thought it was going to turn dark, or
Sixth
you
attempt.
have sixth attempt. Sorry, it was going to turn dark. Or when any of these guys failed, I thought it was going to take a really dark turn, and you're going to see that side of the thing, which you have a
Yeah,
lot of movies and a lot of Bollywood movies that show it. You have that Kota TV show also, which is about people, the famous area where a lot of these things happen, which because of pressure, right? Because of
yeah.
educational
I
pressure.
thought that was a refreshing change where they didn't go down the stereotypical thing, and they kind of showed more the resilience and the
Yeah,
fight that these people have to kind of still find a way to make something of themselves. And then also I like the fact of how, sometimes, I don't know, in today's day and age we find it difficult to enjoy somebody else's success. And I thought this was cool, where how as a community they came together and like, okay, I didn't make it, but we can help prop someone else up, or kind of help someone else achieve something that we couldn't. And so that was something cool to kind of see.
Yeah, and I love that bit. I love the bit where I don't remember the name of the character, but the guy who runs the tea stall or the
Gauri,
restart, Gauri,
Gauri
right?
Bhai.
Yeah. Um, I love the fact that he fails, but I love the fact
Yeah,
that he he at that point does not let that be the end of the story, and kind of turns his life around by doing something else that he kind of wants. He's anyway kind of he goes down the path of obviously serving tea and stuff, but I think his ultimate goal is that I want to train people to do better
Mm.
than what I did. And that's a beautiful part of it. Of course, he's doing for the initial batch free of cost, but I think at some point even he, I hope, realizes how good he is and kind of starts charging people to kind of
yeah, yeah, yeah.
take those classes.
Better
um,
than
uh,
art is a
Yeah. I mean, yeah. So it's a very refreshing take, that bit, and it's really nice. Like, obviously, it's important to understand the dark side of what could possibly happen if
Yeah, yeah,
things
yeah,
didn't work out and stuff. Like, if you're not mentally strong enough to take that kind of pressure, what
yeah.
could eventually happen? But it's really nice that you kind of don't always have to go down that route. You can kind of
I
see.
think what also helps is that it's probably biographical. So probably the guy is actually real and he probably didn't die. So you don't want killing of somebody who's alive.
which
Um,
which is a
yeah,
good refreshing story to say, kind of say, like, it's never the end of the, even if he's not an actual this thing. i
yeah,
i would
yeah.
then commend Vidhu Vinod Chopra
Of course,
for
yeah,
having a character to kind of say that, just failing IPS, this
yeah,
thing, for the sixth time does not mean your life's ended there. It's
yeah,
there is something else you can do. It's never like, if you fail in one thing, that doesn't mean that's it. Like, there's
yeah,
nothing more ahead of it, kind of a thing. And it's a very important life that you learn, the lesson that you learn in life, over time. I don't think as a young teenager, or
hmm.
this thing is something that's taught in school or can be taught in school. It's kind of, you really have to experience certain things.
Yeah.
uh, uh,
No,
so
but
like, you
I
can.
get it. Also, just before I want to move on to the next one, I think the one thing I should mention is we do see Preetham fail continuously while we also see Manoj's success.
Exactly.
But and I love the fact that he called him out for it. It's like we always focus on you, but you never asked me how I was or how I was doing, which is
Yeah.
which is brilliant, because that is one of Manoj's fault, is that he looks at himself and he looks at only how he wants to better his life.
Yeah.
But at some point the people around him who's helping, that sort of goes into the background, and he's
Fades
not
away.
really, yeah, we don't see the gratefulness that he's supposed to show to these people. And these people are the one without whom, he says, right, without me you wouldn't even know what an IPS was, you wouldn't come to Delhi, you would have been stuck in that train
Which is all
station,
true. Which is
which
all
is very
absolutely
true.
true.
And
Yeah.
I'm glad that it might look vindicative and you might look at him as a sole loser, but that was required. I think that was a very, very
Yeah, and
important
I
scene.
think, yeah, and also you have to also take it into perspective that this is over a couple of years, right? So a
Yeah,
couple of years of failure. And I had also, similar to you, I kind of thought about it prior to it happening, where it was his girlfriend initially that celebrated while he was on the phone trying to, like, speak to his dad and kind of explain to him that he is working hard on it and whatever and stuff like that way. And it happened a couple of times while he was on the phone getting yelled at or whatever,
yeah,
having to deal with the disappointment of a parent, and someone comes up to him talking about their success without really taking into consideration what he was going through. And so, yeah, I kind of liked the fact that they addressed it. Also, because you would always see prior to that him celebrating again the success of his friends and stuff like that
Friends.
way,
Absolutely. Yeah.
without him ever being a downer
On
because
what's
he did
happening
not
with them.
succeed.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so I kind of felt for him then, and so that's why I didn't have any kind of negative kind of thing when he
yeah,
finally spoke up, because it was a whole thing that kind of took time to kind of build, and he kept quiet. So I guess the old saying, bottling all your emotions and stuff eventually kind of, yeah, let's
yeah,
go. And if you look at it in some ways, I mean, probably not what the movie was going for, but in some ways that kind of feeling of being alone and dealing with your failures alone probably led to his whole drinking and all that kind of stuff, because one was he was doing something that he wasn't passionate about and then kind of being left behind by his friends and stuff like that way. So yeah, it was not an easy thing for him to deal with himself.
Yeah. So I like the part where Preetham. I mean, I like the part where Preetham wasn't a downer about his situation either, but comes to a boiling point eventually. But more critically, so I like. I like the balance in which the relationship between Manoj and Pritam is shown at that point, in the sense that Manoj, I think, at that point realizes his mistake in not addressing or understanding his friend's predicament, but also understanding where some of the additional frustrations are kind of stemming from, which is
Right.
his
Okay.
inability to kind of voice his issues out to his dad and the eventual lashing out towards him. I think there's a balance of kind of, although at that point I did feel like, Manoj, man, you're a dick for kind of
Okay.
behaving that way with a friend who's with a person who's not been anything but a good friend to you right from the start, kind of a thing. But I think in that moment you feel, I mean, not in that moment, probably a little while later, you kind of feel like probably the right decision to make, because uh, you can't be bogged down by certain things. You kind of need to balance it out, and you kind of, like, it's a nice way to kind of see how relationships usually are, like, sometimes people don't see things very clearly in that moment, and probably Manoj does not see it in a certain light at that perspective, but eventually comes to the realization of, like, yes, whatever happened, etc., and stuff like that. But it's not like this guy was bad. Like, a lot of the good things that happened to me are because this person became a part of my life. He played a crucial part in it, and kind of a thing. And it comes full circle when he kind of, before the final interview, goes back to him after
Yeah.
having not spoken to him for quite some time, as a result of one of these lash outs, and then subsequently something that this person does to further infuriate or bring on the wrath of Mr. Manoj Sharma.
Verma.
Um,
Okay. So now that we've dealt with two important people, we have to talk about what for me was, okay. I'm just gonna say it's probably the most unrealistic thing of the film, but it did happen. I'm guessing so. Uh, it's the fact that we meet his friend who then becomes his love of his life, and that is Shraddha. So we meet. I think we first meet them at R2Z, right, where the father and she come in, and he then exposes their
yeah, they're just about to enroll her into R2Z,
yeah
just right after he himself has enrolled himself into the uh, training course, basically,
yeah
and then
yeah
realizing that mm, they're not who they claim to be.
correct
They're actually duping people in a lot of ways, and they don't hold the kind of, what's the word I'm looking for?
prestige the
Prestige. Yeah,
yeah
yeah. They don't have the actual, like,
the
things to
track
back what
record
they're,
yeah
yeah, the track
exactly
record to kind of boast what they're saying and stuff, and then eventually kind of exposes them in front of all the other potential people who are trying to kind of register themselves into the academy for
now
training.
the one thing which was realistic was when Manoj itself himself tries to sort of help or suggest that he would coach or mentor Shraddha. The father's like, yeah, I will get back to you. I think that was, I think any parent would do that.
No, but I don't think that he just says that he'll help her. I don't think he says about
Mentoring
training
her
her,
or, yeah,
mentoring her, or anything. It's more
oh, but
about,
she's
there
anyway
are
doing a
probably
different
looking at
course, right?
academic. Yeah, there are probably other training. This thing, he just wants to be like this guy who wants to help and stuff like that. And
Mm-hmm.
probably also there is a little bit of a initial this thing of someone actually having spoken, like, from the opposite
Yeah,
gender having spoken to him. So he
yeah,
feels that, like, I want to, like,
yeah.
go out of my way to kind of help this person
Um,
out and stuff. And I love the fact, I love how subtly it's kind of done. They don't spend too much, but the way the father acts upon it, I can see endless number of fathers acting just that way, kind of like, okay, we don't want this unwanted attention.
yeah.
Uh, no
He
more,
said, yeah,
no
he was
matter.
polite enough by saying that, yeah, we'll
Yeah,
get back or we'll see. Yeah,
yeah,
which
yeah.
was
We'll
fair.
see.
Now, the one thing which I will never do is assume someone's background or education by the book that they read.
Book they're reading. Yeah.
Because if someone looks at me and sees me carrying a book, they'll be like, oh, are you a serial killer? Because all I read is crime fiction and murder mystery. So they think that I'm some sort of wannabe assassin, but that's not that. You can't do that. The poor guy was working there. He just so happens to pick up a book on no, I was going to say astronomy. That's not it. It's not
You
astrology.
and a serial killer.
It is
Staying by
Aeronautical engineering.
aeronautical engineer. I think he was holding a book by Abdul Kalam or someone.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it was.
Was it?
I think
No,
so.
he had a
No.
aeronautical engineering book.
Yeah.
The Abdul
Oh,
Kalam thing was just
It's
about
later.
when she asked, "Are you studying here?" and he's like, "Oh, he studied under a lamp. I have a full library." Blah blah blah.
and then she buys him a book which he wants to read on Abdul Kalam.
Yeah,
I think,
that
or
was
On
a
Abdul
little
Kalam.
bit later. Yeah.
later, right? But
Yeah.
yeah, I would never assume. Yeah, but me being a serial killer, what is it?
No, I was just saying that you never know, because I mean, you stay by yourself, and until very recently you're staying near a train station where the sound of the trains go off quite loudly, so it's very possible that you're putting an end to people uh, when like with distractions all around. So I
No,
don't
I
know,
think it
man.
was the other way around. People put an end to me.
Mm, that's
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, or I did actually put an end to it. Sure, whatever you want to call it.
Mm,
Anyway, that's again after us.
mm.
But yes, let's talk about now. Um, but about the relationship, right? Here you have someone who is also moved into the city, who is here wanting to do a different course. She wants to become a collector. No, what does she
Correct.
want to become?
Collector,
A
deputy
collector.
Deputy
collector, right?
collector or something. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, deputy
yeah.
collector.
And of course, both of them have similar classes and similar tuitions and similar subjects, so they both study together. Uh, Now, what I don't like, before I just get to that, what I didn't like about the education or the exam as a whole is it's like almost like the Lion King Sega game. Is that if you fail one section, you have to go back and do the whole thing again, right? There's no checkpoint where after you finish the first
No save point.
no save point, right? After you finish the prelims, you can't go back and you can't just only do the mains. You have to do all of it. So, for example, if I do my CFA level 2 and if I don't get passed or I didn't get passed, I have to do level 1 again, level 2, and level 3. That is stupidity. I don't understand. Yes, okay, it's to give everyone else a fair shot, but come on, man. It's like you've done so much hard work to get through the prelims. You just have to probably just do the mains again.
But I think it's a way to deter people.
I know, I get
See,
that.
we have to be very understanding of the reality of our nation's plight, right? Like,
Yeah,
we have a billion, like, as a population, and out of that, the sheer people who are looking to pursue these kind of careers are extremely high as it is.
yeah,
So there has to be a. I won't say it probably is the right situation we are in, but like, you have to understand where they're probably coming from when they have put these kind of measures into place to avoid uh having one. See, what is the last this thing, like, if everyone starts finishing the exam, but the interview failing the interview
yeah.
becomes the last bit of thing. You have so many people who've passed the this thing, and suddenly
Hmm.
the interview becomes the crux of it all, and then it's like, oh, the interview is always biased and things like that. But at least
Yeah.
from the examination perspective, if the eliminations happen there, then you're like, okay,
No,
cool.
I get it, but if you yeah, okay, I maybe fair. I don't know. I mean, I don't like the fact that you do the prelims again. I think mains, if you don't clear it a couple of times again, you can't.
Okay,
You have the 4
this
tries.
this is
So
all for government jobs, right?
yeah,
Technically,
yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah,
And the reason why this thing has to be so
uh,
complex or like so
yeah,
difficult is because no matter what you do, at any given point there will be limited number of government jobs. You cannot
honestly,
go beyond.
I say that even for a private job, if you don't pass the second round, you have to just do the whole thing again in a way. But it's not an exam. I don't know, for an exam it feels a bit too much. But this is, I
Yeah.
guess, just one entire hiring recruitment process, right? It's not like a 12th standard or a bachelor's degree or a master's degree. It's
See,
essentially a
from
recruitment
someone who's
process.
trying to pursue the course,
Yeah,
I feel like it's very unjust.
yeah.
But from the people who kind of are sitting at the top and trying to get the cream of the, what is
No,
that?
but yeah, cream of the crop. But
Yeah,
all I'm
cream
trying
of
to
the
say
crop.
is it is
M de
right,
la
because I
crème,
think,
is that
yeah,
what they
crème de la
call it?
crème. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, that's what I was going for. Yeah.
But it is right, because this is not an exam per se. This is a hiring process, which
Yeah.
means that if you, this is step 1, step 2, step 3 of a hiring
Exactly.
and like a job, you do have step 1 will be a technical interview, then you'll have your telephonic interview, and if you don't get past the second one, you'll have to start again all over from scratch, which is
Yeah.
applying and do that. So fine, I
Exactly.
get it now. I understand that now. But let's talk about the relationship, right? Here you have someone who is from a well-to-do family, who's sort of, I guess, really interested in someone who is. What is she interested in terms of the tenacity, the resilience of Manoj? I mean, it's not always that you have these sort of two societies mingle with each other, right?
Outright, I think
That
it's
is
the
the
honesty of Manoj, right?
right.
The
Okay.
fact that he kind of
Except for the fact that it
immediately.
started with a lie. The entire relationship began with a lie that he is an aeronautical engineer. But yeah,
Again, right? Like
he didn't dissuade
he
her,
did
and
not
he
say
could have,
anything about
but he
it.
could have said
Neither,
it. He
Yeah,
could
but he
have
could
said
have been
no.
but
smart enough to see. The thing is, he could have clarified the whole situation then and there. His only defense at that point is like, "I never told you anything," which is shitty because even he knows when he stands up to say, "No, there is nothing wrong. I am a BA student, or I have done Bachelor of Arts and I've not done engineering." Because when he's saying that, he already knows he's fucked up,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
means he does feel the guilt of not having told her. The only saving grace he feels is like, I never really told you that, uh I have done engineering.
Yeah, yeah.
That's the only thing.
Fair.
But I think for like why the girl actually likes him, probably the kind of guy she's known as, like, all have been dishonest, all come from like well-to-do families and probably are just like sitting around doing nothing or something like that, and this guy feels refreshing to her because of his honest opinion, and also not just that he's honest, but also the fact that he's not willing to kind of stay quiet, um, because
Or
people try.
settle as, yeah, or settle to be what society would have deemed him to be, right? Which is a menial worker. He's showing that sort of like, I want to climb up the ladder, the sort of ambition, the drive, which is fair. I mean, uh, I feel like there's a lot more of drive and ambition from people who don't have it than people who do have stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's just an on, right? Like, look at all the great footballers. Most of them come from nothing.
Yeah,
They're like, that's the best this thing, and the next generation that comes from them, they don't have the same. Like, how
yeah.
many footballers kids have you kind of seen to step up to that level? You'll have the best of the best as a this thing, but it's not passed on. Or like, see,
Yeah,
yes, you might have the talent in the world, but you kind of have to work for it as well. And
yeah,
the work for it only comes from if you have the drive. The
yeah.
moment you are provided with everything and a certain this thing, certain tenacity or certain
Is
drive
lost.
within you
Yeah,
is
yeah,
taken.
yeah, yeah.
So yeah, I think it is by far like people who don't have the basics, or people who kind of like don't come from a privileged
Or
upbringing.
even people who've come from privilege but have lost somehow, or have to be the bread. Like, for example, I took a gap, right, between my master's and my, I took it because I probably could take it. But someone who had to provide for the family can't afford to do
Exactly.
it. So
Yeah.
even if you are privileged enough, if you have to be,
I think it's what is driving you to kind of do what it is that you are pursuing, right? So
yeah,
like you even have many, if you want to go down the football route of Naeem, you have so many guys who were from rags, reached riches, lost motivation, and went back to rags also. So
yeah,
it basically is what drives you and what motivates you. So I guess in Manoj's cases, one was that he always had the integrity and all that kind of stuff, but what drove him was the doing it to kind of bring pride to the family, bring pride to the village, uh, you know, fulfill father's dream, grandmother's dream, and all that kind of stuff. That was it. It was never the. I think one of the lines somewhere in the movie it was mentioned is that it's not about what you receive when you get into those places of power, or it's not about the power that you wield, but like more about what you do with that power and all that kind of stuff, or something along those lines. So that was what he was chasing. It was about trying to do the little good that he could do to reform the country in his eyes and stuff like that. So he was always looking at that rather than, okay, if I get this job, I'm going to make this much money and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I mean, that was the only way someone can kind of work the hours that he was doing, then study post that and all that kind of stuff. So yeah.
Coming back to the relationship though, so I really like the fact that there are multiple facets or multiple perspectives to it. I think the initial bit, the part where he kind of flunks his prelims or whatever, I think like you don't see it enough in terms of like the scenes between him and the girl, so you don't have a lot to go on, but the general understanding is, and this happens when the guy, his friend, gets drunk and starts spilling a little too much facts, and he says, like, you know, like, this guy is wasting away his time spending, like, being kind of spending his energy on a relationship with this girl, and giving him a reality check of, you know, like, do you think she's gonna be with you if and when you don't clear this or don't become this person and you just stay who you are right now? It's not gonna work out that way, you know. They're gonna, obviously there's some amount of his personal experience that's translated, that he's kind of projecting on the other person there. But I think that's also an important point in two parts. One, making Manoj realize that he needs to make certain changes, but second, also to the partner, in the sense that she needs to help draw certain lines, because if she doesn't do it, this person loves her so much that he will not realizing that he's not giving enough priority to what he needs to give priority to. And I think that becomes a critical point in both of them realizing what their parts are, and kind of her taking the lead in helping set his priorities right, but also being there for him. I think that small break that happens in the middle, which is post, I think, him, like, her realizing that he's not an engineering student, feeling that he's lied to her, or at least misled her to believe that he's, you know, an engineering student, etc., etc. Then going away to her hometown, then him having not exactly chase after her, but like kind of visit her after a while and be like, you know, like, confess his feelings to her, and then she kind of just shuns him out and things like that. That also helps give him a reality check of trying to, like, that sets him, I think, back to zero, right? He goes all the way back.
He had
to
failed again. He had to.
He failed and then went to her house.
He failed.
I think
that's
when he did terrorism in India instead of tourism in
India.
Which is classic.
And instead of like getting prepared for his like a reattempt, he kind of goes to visit her or whatever, and she gets pissed off at him, etc., etc. And then eventually he kind of takes it so hard that he goes back to his village, right? That's when he goes back to his village.
He goes back to his village, then comes back and becomes a Chucky worker, flour mill worker.
Post that, he comes back, and I think he meets Deep Mohan.
No. That's for the mains, right? That's when
that's much later.
Is it?
because he needs to do the prelims. He's still working as a flour mill worker, and then
But
for his
something
mains,
drives him to the farmer. Like he stops talking to that guy also, right? Like he goes
Gauri
missing.
Bhaiya.
Not Gauri Bhaiya only, but
No,
even his friend.
Preetham.
he stops talking to Preetham, as in not
Because
stops talking, but he kind of exiles himself into that thing, and he's studying in there.
isn't that because Preetham goes and tells about Shraddha, tells Shraddha's parents that she's sleeping with him and all of that, and then that's when they stop.
That is
They tell
no,
her.
that is later, right?
That
So
is
he goes. The flour mill thing is before that, because this guy meets him first.
Then the father comes to the flour mill as well, and then gives him extra hope.
At this point, he's still in good terms with him, with Preetham. Like Preetham comes to visit him and stuff like that.
Correct. That's all fine.
Before, like, I'm just trying to figure out what drives him to go into the Chucky place to begin with. Something
that's the only the library. Doesn't he lose his job or something like that, or I don't know.
Yeah, he leaves the library because they think he stole that money or something.
He cheated or something. I think after that he moves there.
Yeah. So, you're asking about that? Yeah. So that's what he moves to the flour mill thing. Then all of the events happen. Then he goes visits. So then he passes his prelims. Then at the mains is when. So he clears that up. That entire issue where the parents think that she's sleeping and then they cut her out of his life. Then
that is when he's prepping for the mains.
Then he realizes that this idiot is the one who's gone and told them. So then I think they clear it up. He calls her up and I think then she convinces the father, right? That
she kind of reasons with him and says
that's after he's cleared the mains. This is right before, because he calls her to tell her that he cleared his mains.
No, I think before, right? Because
no. That's when he calls her.
No, so he calls and then the mother picks up the phone and all that happens.
He just wants to give the good news. So he snatches the phone first, right? Like to give the good news, I think. And that's when this guy says, I flunked or whatever and stuff like that.
No, I thought that was before, because that's the prelims is what he wants to tell her or something, because there's definitely some point which we're all a little confused here, but he gets drunk after that whole fight, and then he tells the parents that she's sleeping with him, right?
Yeah, that's after the mains.
No,
that's not after.
It's before the mains.
No, it cannot be before the mains.
How can they not be talking to each other then, or how would she be cut off from him?
The mains is the one where the
guys, hold on.
Wait. But the mains is the one where there's that montage of him sleeping, putting the timer, doing the writing, then this thing. That's all the mains. That's the preparation for the mains.
Exactly.
That's for that Shraddha's there. So that is after that is obviously after
that she goes for her thing. No, she goes for the deputy.
Yeah, but the parents. But she comes back to him after the whole parents, when she's convinced her father.
Is it?
Yeah. It's definitely that, because then she comes back. She's like, I've got a surprise for you, and then she comes and she's like, she helps him through that entire process. Then she goes back to do her own exams, which she passes.
Yeah, she comes back after convincing the father just in time, where he's like, I don't want to wear the tie and all that shit.
Oh, but that's after mains though.
That's the mains, Aaron. That's what I'm talking about. The mains are already done by that time. He's prepping for his interview. That's what it is.
That's what I'm saying. She comes back after the mains is done. That's what I was saying.
That's what I was saying as well. It's not.
Praddy is saying it the other way.
Exactly. Right? Yeah, it's the mains.
What?
So okay, wait. Hold on. He calls to tell her that he's passed his mains, but her mom picks up the phone and she says, I will convey the message to her. And then she hangs up, and hours later she calls him again. The girl calls him, and then she tells him the reality of the situation, that I'll not be coming back to Missouri because someone's called dad up and said XYZ happened.
Okay, I just read on Wikipedia. So,
because
fair.
When she's having a conversation with her dad, he says, how much I want, it's a good day for him. I really want to congratulate, be there for him and stuff like that.
And
And then she
that
comes back for
y-
the.
yeah, fair. Okay, I was wrong. So it is she helps him with the mains, goes to do the her exam, becomes a tax collector. Then the whole thing happens where Preetham fails. He then gets pissed off, calls Shraddha's parents, and he passes the mains. And then at that point, great, got it, done. All right. With all of that done, let's just, because we're probably
We're way
as long,
beyond
yeah,
where
way
we
beyond
need
the
to
thing.
be.
But let's talk about the final interview, because that is now the big thing, right? Where he goes nicely clean shaven with a tie, does the interview. What did you make of the interview process? Because that dude, like, I don't know. I've met some interviewers in the past who've been quite tough, but this was, I have no clue. Probably drew the shorter end of the stick. Because if I don't know if you guys have any interview stories of your times of meeting somebody like a Mr. What is his
Mehta.
name? Mehta. Yeah. But we are told, I think he's told ahead of time that this guy does not like people who are Hindi pass outs,
Medium.
Hindi
Yeah.
medium. But I mean, I'm glad that he was not the only sole interviewer in the room. I'm glad there were other people, and especially the women looked a lot more empathetic or sympathetic. Sympathetic, not empathetic, but sympathetic for Manoj when he kind of is already
I
shunned
think
out before he says anything.
everyone except for that one person right in the middle who seems like a dick, is everyone else is like willing to give him a shot or wants
Yeah,
to listen to his side of things and like his story and stuff like that. Whereas
yeah,
this first person, having seen him or heard him utter that first word, has already made up his mind.
yeah.
Have I come across someone like that? No, I think I've been quite lucky from that perspective. I've not had too many interviews either. Like
Hmm.
I think for my first job, I had like 3 interviews, and like all touch wood, all of them were like really uh, good people who were looking to have sensible conversations
Yeah.
that revolved around the job that I was supposed to take, and
Hmm.
similarly with my second job interview as well, which was more like which happened like 7 8 years down the line. Even that was very to the point. No unnecessary questions. Very focused in terms of understanding who I am as a person, what
Yeah,
I want, like what kind of value I can bring, and also helping me understand the goal of the company in itself. So I think I've been lucky from that perspective because I've heard some horror stories in
yeah.
terms of uh,
Interviews
interviews that have
and
happened.
biasness. Yeah, he clearly had a bias, and I think, see, in this day and age, everyone lies on their CVs, everyone this thing. But the fact that Manoj went in there and clearly went in with the thing of being honest, like he could have easily said that I failed because, some death in the family, someone, I was distracted because someone passed away or something. But the fact is that he did open up about the troubles in the thing, and also it's apt given the sort of job that he is applying for, right?
Yeah, and I also think like it's a positive outlook. See, it's a non-fiction story, yes. So they're telling a story of what his
Hmm.
version of the story, of course, in this case. But it's nice to see kind of a thing that you don't lose yourself in the pursuit of what you think is the ultimate goal. And
Right.
and that's where it comes full circle, that he does not forget who he is as a person or why he set out to begin do
Yeah.
this in the first place, right? Because if he gives in to this weakness of kind of going down the pathway that someone is suggesting he needs to do to kind of get past this final hurdle, then he loses what he actually kind of set out to do, which is defeat this whole what's the right word, um,
The corruption or the
unjust, yeah, the
unjust, yeah.
corruption setup that is shown over and over during the course of the movie.
Yeah.
Um, so
I
so it's
So do you guys
yeah.
think the interview was more or the interviewer was a dick, or do you think he was just sort of doing this to try and test Manoj's patience or resilience and kind of the pressure that's going to come with the kind of job? Because we've seen how police is often criticized. We've seen the sort of backlash that people do, the pressure that comes with that sort of job, right? So, what do you guys think it's?
So I think Aaron and I were having a conversation on this earlier. So let him kind of put his perspective in as well, because I do have a similar perspective, but slightly differing to it. So let him go first on that bit, I suppose.
Yeah, so I think it was kind of a test, because if you see that he also, once the interview is done, he does kind of take in the opinions of all the other interviewers as well. Because if he wanted to kind of just say no, this is not someone that I want to, then he could have just kind of disregarded their kind of input. I think it was a way to kind of see whether the integrity that he was kind of showing up front, he was kind of testing it to see whether it was a facade, because you have many occasions where people are trained, or they know how to say the right thing to the people that is in front of them, and so you kind of try to get under the skin of people, because that's when the true version of themselves comes, when you kind of crack under pressure. And so I think it seemed like that was what he was trying to do. And also sometimes, like how when the guy who was walking him to the room said, "Oh, this is the perception that people have of this guy." I mean, that can very easily be misunderstood by people, because sometimes when people don't get through, then they always like to kind of blame circumstance rather than their own inability, or let's not be harsh and say inability, but whatever, misfortune for not being able to get through, and then you kind of try to find reasons as to why you've not gotten through. So I feel that it was a test, and I think those are the type of tests that need to be done for people that are taking up these jobs, because they're not easy, and they're going to constantly be challenged. Their integrity is going to be challenged by a lot of people, and so I feel that it may be harsh, and I could very easily be misreading the whole situation, but I think it was a much needed way of having the interview, where you kind of have people who, yes, are sympathetic, understanding, and give you the opportunity, but you need to have hard hitting questions as well, just to make sure that the right person is there in front of you.
Because I had someone when I was doing an interview with this company where I was doing a video call interview, and this guy kept telling me that. So I was interviewing for an economist role or a data analytical role, and he was saying that I had some prior experience, but he's saying that he kept telling me that the kind of data that we're going to be dealing with is not 100, 200, it's 10,000, 20,000. I was like, that doesn't matter, because whether it is 100, whether it's 200, whether it's 10,000, the coding is just going to be, it's just coding. So you just change values and you're probably going to do the same thing. And I was like, yeah, it shouldn't matter. But he kept harping on about it, and he kept trying to frustrate me in the sense that he kept trying to tell me that I won't be up for the job. So, and I won't be able to handle the sort of work pressure and the sort of this thing, despite me constantly telling him that what I'd done was similar lines, and whether it is 10,000, whether it's 100, it really is not too much of a difference.
Yeah.
But
so I think that's a lot of interviews happen that way, mainly because they want to see how a person is able to kind of deal with these things, whether they are able to kind of think on their feet. And sometimes in an interview, it's very difficult to gauge a person to see how that translates into a job. And so then you need to kind of push buttons just to see how reactive they are when it comes to, if a problem is put in front of them, are they able to kind of figure a way out for themselves, right? Because you could have multiple great CVs in front of you, and then you need to find a way to kind of distinguish one from the other, and then it boils down to these small kind of details, where are they able to think on their feet, are they able to kind of come up with solutions, think for themselves, not rely on someone else, and those kind of things. And obviously this job was definitely something that you need to be able to kind of find solutions in quick time.
Yeah.
And so you can't
But
fault him for being an ass, if you want to call him that. But also on the flip side, if someone was to tell me that there are interviewers coming in with preconceived notions and biases and stuff like that way, for one, I would tell you I'm not surprised because, I mean, to be honest, that's the world we live in, where no matter who you are, there are people who will always have an opinion, whether good or bad, about certain backgrounds of people and stuff like that way, and certain reservations about abilities of people based on where they come from. That is something that we have to deal with. And sometimes people just out of sheer luck aren't able to make it, and some people just find a way to get through. I mean, that's a fault in the way things are run, but right now I think we haven't kind of figured out the best way to get the right people in the right jobs.
Okay.
So yeah, like my perception is slightly different of again, we need to understand that this is his version of how that person is.
Yeah.
We don't really know what happens behind those doors because he's just portraying it in his head. In even the person, like actual person who's written the novel and like gone through the situation, he doesn't really know what's happened behind. So I'm purely taking from the perspective of his perspective of this character that's drawn
Which
up.
is fair. Which is an
Initially,
correct
initially I thought of this person as maybe okay, it is what Aaron is saying, right? This guy is harsh, even though the guy who guides the person into the room takes Manoj to the room, already puts this seed into his head that that this guy has preconceived notions about certain castes or the people who
Hindi
speak
medium. That's what he said.
Hindi
Yeah.
medium, etc. Yeah. So, in like don't unnecessarily give him that chance to kind of pick on and eliminate you or to begin with, kind of a thing. And I kind of obviously like the initial conversations this person is having. I feel like he's just trying to test the candidate and kind of see if he breaks and along those lines. But it's the fact when he's leaving the room that he still feels the need to pass the comment of being saying something like useless, or even beyond that, like in his in Manoj's perception of this person, the conversations he's having behind the doors, in this reality it shows that this guy, yes, there is some sort of bias he's got against people
But
like Manoj.
then again, you like you said, it's his perception. So again, we're going only by it. So right, he
Yeah.
probably said
I'm
useless,
purely
but
like I'm
it
maybe
also
in
could be that
reality.
when he's exiting, it's in his mind that guy is saying useless, but you really he's
I mean,
whispering it to.
in
I
in
get it.
in
No,
the
I get
movie
it.
maybe it,
Yeah.
yeah, right, like so we're talking purely from that perspective, but
Yeah.
in reality I very much think it might be the person that Aaron and I first initially thought, because I think for someone who's being interviewed at these kind of roles, they need to withstand some sheer like amount of criticism, because that's what the job entails. The kind of things that are going to be thrown at you are going to be really fierce, and you got to really have like very strong resolve to kind of put up to that and be like come out unscathed from it. So maybe in reality that was the like who that real person is. Maybe that was his intention, right? And he wasn't this dick that's kind of portrayed within the concept of this film, or the perception of this character. But yeah, like it's that one line that he kind of passes right at the end as he's walking out, and his eventual conversation with his peers as well. It's not very positive in the sense that he does not feel like this guy is adding a new value, but he's just like ticking the boxes that he needs to hear from the others as well, kind of a thing.
Which I really liked his analogy of the tumbler, the steel glass, and this thing glass. As much as it really pissed off the interviewer, but that is true. It doesn't matter as long as the goal or the end goal or the vision is the same, whether Hindi medium or you really do need, because they do need people who speak Hindi and Hindi medium people to, in a country where that is the majorly spoken language, right? Or
See, the
you
goal
have
should always be
betterment of the
that
country.
absolutely.
Yeah,
And while I do agree you need to have dual lingo
yeah,
officers, or in certain cases more than dual, because you have states that have their own languages, etc.,
yeah, yeah.
etc. Right?
Regional stuff. Yeah,
Regional. I think having like translators is like people within the office force, especially those right at the top, perhaps
yeah,
they need to have that control of having dual languages, because of the sheer fact that they need to be able to fathom or take into account any person that's reporting to them, the kind of
yeah,
value they
yeah.
bring in,
But
right? Like,
also, this job is all about communication. You have to communicate, and it is about getting the message clear and across in the best possible way. So whether it is through translator, whether it is through your own sheer knowledge of the language, you need to have that. And so I mean, the fact that he managed to even speak a few lines in English despite being in a being despite his
coming from
background,
a
right?
Hindi medium, yeah.
Coming from, no, even coming from a village, and I mean, it is very commendable. So I think that was great. And also brilliant is when he finally gets the result and he is through. I like the fact that there's that guard outside who, when he first enters, he acts like he's a nobody, but the moment he comes back and he asks what happened and he says IPS, this guy's like with a big smile and salutes him, right? I'm like, yeah, that's the issue. You shouldn't be treating just because he's an IP. Like, even while coming in, you shouldn't have that attitude, right? And that's what I guess needs to change. Like, you're treating someone, or you're based or on your previous biasness that this person is some random dude who's just coming in, some nalayak, I suppose. Uh, so, so we end the movie not there, but with the wedding where he goes back to the village, and oh no, but before that he goes back to meet Dushyant, who
Oh yes,
was
yeah,
that's a really nice touching moment where
yeah.
where he gives him his wedding invitation, and uh, you know, Dushyant
Even the
hasn't aged
evening,
a day, by the way, since when
yeah,
he
yeah,
met him till
in the
where,
years, yeah,
yeah, in the years he still remains the same.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. But also like the scene where right before the interview, he goes and patches up with his friend who is the cause
yeah,
of like all the good that's kind of translated from there, even though they've had their differences for XYZ reason. That shows the crux of who Manoj really is, that he doesn't forget the good that people have done for him, and kind
yeah,
of realizes his mistake to a certain level, and knows that not every bad action always results in something bad.
yeah,
Sometimes they can also translate into good things, which in his case it does,
yeah,
thankfully. And like it's that thing that friendships are so crucial that it's never, a lot of times it's not beyond repair. So kind of
hmm.
going back and paying homage to kind of that relationship that they both had right from the start of the movie was brilliant. And the fact that he does it before the interview as opposed to after is
After, yeah,
even more like it holds a lot more value for as per me. Like it's brilliantly done, that whole uh, uh, section of the movie, I would say. Yeah.
perfect.
And yeah, going back to Dushyant, bringing it all back like circle.
And going back to the village, and then
Oh yeah, yeah.
arresting those people, I'm guessing the mayor and everything.
So was that an arrest, or they were just supposed to be
I
like
think they
going
were
around
just going in
attending the?
the Jugad rickshaw, taking
Yeah,
them
that's it.
along with the.
Yeah,
Right,
I
okay,
don't think he had sufficient grounds to
arrest
arrest
them.
them at that point in time. But it's like, I've got my eyes on you, so yeah,
Yeah,
let's go enjoy my wedding and come back, kind of a thing.
nice.
Yeah, but I love the small comic touches as well. Like the first
Yeah,
thing that the father does when he hears the news of being, say, like his son is finally an IPS, is like rushing to the guy who suspended him, and he's like, you don't know who my son is, kind of a thing. It's
okay,
like
yeah,
Indian parent kind of a thing to do. So it's really a really nice touch. And just it's all these little pieces, right? The relationship with the mom, like it's not always stressed upon through the beginning parts of the movie. You don't see it as much, but that visit where he goes back to see her after he's gone through a lot in Delhi and stuff like that, and she tries to portray that everything is okay. He's not under any kind of pressure, and then eventually he says, "I see through it all" and stuff like that, and then she breaks down. That moment that they have together, oh my god, such a very nice emotionally driven moment. That is like I love those little bits and pieces that they've kind of put across. Even the point where they're going to the grocery store to take his call.
Yeah.
It's not something that like they have at homes or it's something like that.
Correct.
That's the reality of all of that. So it's very nice to see all of those things.
Where you have to go to a payphone or those STD booths.
Yeah, because that's what I remember. Like I think back in
those who are not from India, STD is not what you think.
No, yeah. I think the early 90s, late 90s and stuff. You had those.
Yeah.
So
those
you had to go to those booths and stuff like that.
And talk.
Yeah.
It's hilarious. But wow, I think this episode is probably as long as our UPS or the UPSC exam.
This is what 2 hours 30 minutes. As long
something
as
longer than the movie.
Longer than the movie. But thank you for everyone who's been patient enough or resilient enough to listen to these 12 passers talking about the movie. I hope you really enjoyed our conversation. And if you're listening to this on Spotify, you can check out the video version on YouTube. If you're listening to this on YouTube, if you can go check it out on Spotify. In both cases, please do hit the like button. You can share it with friends and family. That's available on both. You can also comment on our videos. Even on Spotify now, they've allowed you to comment on our episodes, which is a cool thing. So you can get busy there and subscribe to both of our channels. I guess that's about it for our recap of 12th Fail. One of the most successful.
And once you've done all that, restart.
Restart that for every episode that we're doing. So that's it. We'll catch you all soon on the next episode. See you.